Hello, welcome to my vlog. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to come and watch this. I really appreciate it. I'm learning how to do this and it's kind of fun. I really enjoyed it. It's something I always wanted to do. It's one of the reasons why I left my old career was to make things. And so I'm really glad that you have come here and you are spending your mind or brain juice on this. So I really appreciate it. So today I want to talk to you about why I made this incredible career change from pre-medical student, paramedic for the last 10 years and doing all this educational stuff and transitioning and pretty much giving that up to pursue this, where I'm interning my brother who's a successful entrepreneur. I'm able to do all this other things now, right? So it's very interesting. It's been about a week since I made that transition. I moved out of the United States. I'm here in Serbia with my brother in this incredible place called Makran House, right? And I've had a little bit of time to think about my pretty drastic decision. Honestly, it wasn't too drastic though, right? I've been thinking about this for 2 years. 2 years ago, I was like, man, I don't know if I really like this. Do I really like medicine? Do I really enjoy doing this, being around sick people all day? And and I've always wanted to create. I've always wanted to be a creator, and maybe I can be a creator after pre-med school. Maybe I can be a creator after medical school, or And of course, the reality is no. I'll be a doctor. I'll be working 60 hours plus a week, for the next 2 decades. Right? And so quitting that and stopping that whole medical school process, I think will be the best decision that I've ever made. One of the things my fiance just said to me was, this major road that you were taking has now been shut off. Going to medical school was shut off. And so that path has closed. And she was a little disappointed. I could hear in her voice. But with that one road closing, 20 other roads just opened up. And it feels so liberating to finally be able to take a breath of fresh air and know that I don't have to go to medical school. I don't have to do all these tests. I don't have to stay up till 3 in the morning studying my ass off. I don't have to be on call. I don't have to do these incredibly long rotations. I can do whatever I think is most important, right? And I can build an incredible career that way. And something that I want to do, not something that society might say that I want to do. So another concern that has been brought up by my friends and family was pretty much like the lack of security, right? And they are like, well, being a doctor is so secure. Why aren't you just pursuing this beautiful, secure route, My answer to that is, because that's not how you achieve greatness. That's not how you become truly amazing. Becoming a doctor is a tried and true path. There's a lot of demands that are put upon you. And I just am not up for that. I need that instantaneous gratification of doing things my way. I absolutely hated going to school every day and studying my ass off and then getting a B on a test. What was that? It wasn't for me. And I'm really glad now I can make these videos, I can write, and I get that immediate satisfaction. Oh my God, I just created something for myself. Not for someone else, but for myself. That can potentially benefit other people as well. And I thought that was beautiful. And I'm really glad I quit my job as a paramedic. Best decision ever. All right, I was working for someone else and making money for someone else, okay? And really, when it comes down to it, is it even worth money? What is money besides this weird societal constraint? So let's talk about money real quick. What is the importance of money, right? That's something I think we all need to ask ourselves. Like, truly, what is money? I knew something was wrong with the whole Western use of money, right? Buying a house, having debt for 30 years, credit card debt. What is the purpose of this, right? And I noticed that it was locking people down. It was locking people into careers they didn't like, into jobs they didn't like, having to go to work, having to pay off all these debts for these dumb materialistic goods, right? And hey, I was there, man. I was buying stuff. I have a Best Buy credit card. I was buying all sorts of stuff from Best Buy, and I could buy this, but then I have to work, this many hours, and this idea of spending money, get these things, but then really what I was doing, I was selling my time. And I didn't like that. I didn't like that I was becoming essentially a slave to my job, and because I didn't like my job at all. There was something wrong with it. And I didn't like it until I visited my brother a few years ago, and I started to understand that this wasn't necessarily something that needed to happen. Right? I thought this was something that everybody experienced. This was a normal part of life. So when I started to visit my brother just a few years ago, I started to see these incredible differences in the way he lived life as opposed to how most of America lived life. He lived life out of a backpack that he could immediately pack up and just go anywhere he wanted to in the world. I thought this idea was great because, he could go travel. I thought that was a great and beautiful thing. And so I really wanted to explore this more just because of this idea. One thing that he told me, he said, hey, Kendall, look, you can have either shiny or you can have wealth. I thought about that and it's so true. My God, instead of having all these materialistic goods, you can have money, which it can equate to time and wealth. What a mind-blowing idea that was for me. And so I continued to explore this, and then I went back to my job as a paramedic, working for credit card debt and all this stuff. And I realized, do I really want all these things? I don't think so. I think I want time. And so I started playing around with it more and more and more. And for me personally, the security of leaving my job was just too much to handle. I couldn't leave my job. But this idea was put into my head and it started to grow. So I was put in this weird position, right? I had this incredible idea in my head, yet I was still held back by the constraints that I kind of formed in my life that I thought were just normal. What I did though was I started to see, okay, what do I have to do to get out of this situation and go into this new situation that I kind of want to do? Well, first of all, it took the thought that, whoa, Kendall, you only live once, buddy. You gotta do something special with your life, okay? Not something that's expected of you, something that's truly meaningful for you. So that was first and foremost. Second of all, I had to kind of pull away from these constraints in a way that didn't destroy my family and my fiance, because they saw me working so hard in my career and in school, and they didn't want me to just, drop it. So I said, okay, look. I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna study, I'm gonna continue studying for the MCAT, I'm gonna take the MCAT, and I'll make my decision after that. And so I continued to study for the MCAT and pay off my debts, right? Because I knew I didn't wanna start this new journey with a bunch of credit card debt. That wouldn't make any sense, trying to pay monthly bills, not knowing what my income would be. And so I went ahead, continued to work and continued to study, hated it the whole time, totally felt incomplete, knowing that this was not, fulfilling at all. And then I took the MCAT. The day I took the MCAT, right after I finished, I went to the ocean and I swam for 2 hours off the coast of Florida. And I did a lot of thinking. So I went to the ocean and I started swimming, and it was an incredible experience. Right then I knew I was finally done with the requirements I had in my head. Finish the MCAT and then make your decision. It was so liberating. Instantly I knew I could do anything. I could finally go the paths I want. During that 2-hour swim, I decided I didn't want to go to medical school. That was the official decision. I decided that there was way more out there and that I could go explore the world I was finally done with this constraint that was in my head. So a few days later, I had my one-way ticket in my hand to Barcelona, Spain, and I left the United States. So I finally got to Barcelona, right? And it still hasn't hit me that I quit my job and that I started, to move on in my life, right? It was one of the biggest decisions I ever made. And before that whole decision process, there was a huge amount of fear. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to think. I mean, I was all over the place. I was very fearful. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna quit this job. Oh my gosh. And then I finally did it, right? So I'm on the airplane. All I can think about is, my God, I finally can do what I want. I've waited my whole adult life to do this. Instead of following the societal constraints and societal demands and the expectations, here I was in an airplane with a one-way ticket to do anything. Pretty awesome thought, right? So when I finally got to Spain, I was greeted by my brother. I should say that we had a deal, right? I would function as his intern and then also learn from him. But I was his intern. So there was a lot of work to be done and I wasn't prepared for that, right? And it was drastically different than the work that I was doing in the ambulance. I was booking things for him. I was rough editing all his video cuts and all this stuff. To be honest with you, it's hard, man. It's really hard. And my brother is not the easiest person to work with. Sometimes he can be a real and he can be a dickhead, and sometimes he's a very... The thing is, after a few days of this, and I was like talking to my fiance about it, and I was telling her, look, man, it's really hard to work with this guy. He is such a... this is not what I signed up for. After a few days of this, I realized, holy shit, I'm learning some valuable lessons from this guy. He's teaching me about accountability. He's teaching me about assertiveness. He's teaching me about urgency. And that's way more important than being comfortable. He is teaching me about real life entrepreneurial skills, which are way more important than the cushiness that most of Western society practices so much. They say growth can never happen in a comfort zone. It's not meant for me to be comfortable. This is meant for me to grow. And that's why I'm here. So even though he can be a dick sometimes, he's still my brother and he's still my teacher. And I really appreciate that. So I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that I could have gone on and made this comfortable living and this comfortable job that I knew how to do that I wasn't satisfied with, or I could have gone this route where I get to explore the new. I get to see what my potential can be. I get to explore this whole realm that I've always wanted to explore, but that is not the typical, right? That's not the standard. After thinking and realizing that, I only have this one life, I made the decision to do the atypical, to do something that is scary, something that's fearful, something that's unsure. And you know what? I think it was the right decision. It was a tough decision to make, for sure, and there's a lot of fear, but I know I can't be fearful my whole life. I have to go and get what I want. This is what's important. And so here I am, in this beautiful and incredible environment, because I let go of this idea of what my life was, and now I'm seizing this opportunity to intern with my brother, to be in places like this that stimulate the brain. And it feels good. It feels really good. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of things that I need to learn, principles I need to fortify within my life. But I think when I'm old, sick, and in my deathbed, I'll have less regrets because of this decision. I want to talk about an attribute that I really lacked my whole adult life. I always wanted to do things, right? I always wanted to learn, so I read a lot of books, a lot. I have over 100 books on my Audible account, right? And a whole library at home. But one thing a lot of these books don't necessarily talk about is action. I think action is hands down one of the most important things that one can do in one's life. I mean, this is how you learn. You truly learn, right? Because humans are inherently afraid of making mistakes, but that is the single best way to learn, is through mistakes. So for example, I'm making these vlogs. I'm not very good at them, but I'm learning. Every single video I upload, I learn more and more and more. Right? My communication skills maybe get better, my shooting skills, my editing skills, these things always get better. And so I think action, even if it's not the best thing to do, but it's in line with your principles, you do it, you understand it, you learn about it, and then you do it again and you're better at it. And I think this is what is truly the best thing to implement in your life. And this is something that I am trying to do on a daily basis. One word, action. So if we're going to talk about action, I suppose it's a good idea to talk about fear. So fear is something that dominated my life for the last 10 years, right? And that's why I went into the medical field, because it was an extremely safe job. I mean, hey, everyone's always going to get sick, right? So it was a safe job. It was also kind of straightforward, right? You do this, and then you get to this point in your career. You do that, and then you get to this point in your career. And for me, that was a very safe option. That was a very safe bet. But because of that, that's all I could do, was be a paramedic, be a medical student, potentially go to medical school. With fear and having that fearful mindset, it really inhibited me from obtaining my potential. Now, in the back of my mind, I always thought, oh, I could do this, I could do that, I could do this, I could do that, but it was fear that ultimately came in and said, no, Kendall, that won't make you money, that won't make you money, that won't, be secure for you, don't do it. And because of that thought, I didn't do anything. Having fear, I think, is a natural thing for humans. What if we could just have some faith? Faith, I think, is, for me, just the key to overcoming fear. Faith in regards to that everything's gonna be okay, the world's not gonna end, the world's gonna keep on spinning, and no matter what I do, as long as I maintain my positive principles, everything's gonna be all right. I'm not gonna become homeless and starve to death. Just have a little faith and do what you know is right. So I want to talk about something else that had a huge influence in my life. I had really shitty friends for a long, long time. A lot of these friends I developed when I was a little kid, and they were little kids. Ultimately, they became people that weren't successful, that were always living on the edge or on the cliff, as my brother calls it. Those were my friends, right? And because of that, I got into a lot of trouble. I did a lot of things that inhibited me succeeding. They had these very closed mindsets, and I would surround myself with that. And ultimately, I had a closed mindset as well, because I was on the same level as them. And so that's one of the major reasons why I left Orlando, Florida, and came here to be with my brother, because my brother has a great mind. He has an open mind, very high level, and that is who I need to surround myself with, so I can achieve my greatest potential. So ask yourself this: are you surrounding yourself with the right people? And look, these people, they could be your family. They could be your mother, your father, they could be your best friends, your brothers, your sisters, but are they sharing the same value as you? So I want to talk about principles. I know I mentioned them a few times already. There's a lot of ways to get through life, right? There's all these roads and there's all these decisions we have to make, and they can be very overwhelming, especially for me. It certainly was. What I've realized in the last 28 years of my life is, even though there's all these intricacies in life, if I can maintain a set of core principles that are true to myself and that are morally grounded, then it doesn't matter what roads I take or the decisions I make, because ultimately they'll be true and moral and grounded. And I think that is superior than all the decisions and everything else that happens in life. It's those core principles. Are your principles sound? So you ask, what exactly are my principles? Let me tell you. That's something that took a long time to figure out. I think that health is number one, right? Mental health, physical health. Without those two things, how can you help someone else? Maintaining that through adequate sleep, adequate nutrition, or good nutrition, and good exercise, daily exercise, good mental health, I think is key. And I think through exercise, through sleep, you can maintain that consistency, staying away from all the evils, all the cliff edges in the world. You know? I mean, there's so many things out there that can rob you of your health. And for a profit, too. So I think it's important to stay away from the news, social media, peer pressure friends. I think that's key to maintaining the health principle. Another principle that I've really come to terms with in the last few years is being true to yourself. For me, I want to be creative. That's what I want to do. That's a principle of mine. Another principle I have is to be as kind as I can to other human beings without being taken advantage of. I'm huge when it comes to ethics and morality. I've been the byproduct personally of horrible ethical decisions from other people. That's another story though. I think some of the most important things about life are relationships. Maintaining and building relationships can be such a beautiful thing. So those are my three main principles. As long as I can maintain all three of those, it doesn't matter what else happens in life. It'll all work out.